Good evening, everybody. I know the late starts have kind of been, I don't know, how do I put it, a little bit more, that they're more consistent than the normal starts. I'm not crazy about that, and I will work to fix it. But it has been a tough time lately. Um, I don't know if it's allergies or what, but I've definitely been feeling very like low in terms of just like my eyes right now are really watery and itchy and whatnot. But this isn't a stream for complaining about my um, my maladies, whatever they are. Um, we are here for some Phantom Brigade. I just wanted to give a quick warning that I have some laundry that I'm doing right now. Like I said, it's been a bit of a wild ride for the last little while, and part of uh, part of that is just trying to like find time for everything. So I'm gonna take a break about an hour in to just take the uh, take the laundry out of the wash, put it in the dryer, um, and then I'll probably need another one to to get stuff out of the dryer, but we won't go that far. Anyways, on to the game. Also, I'm getting a warning here. Right. I'm gonna have to worry about this later. Okay. We are ready for Bredist. How are you doing? I was actually just complaining about how it's been frantic and like I think it's allergies or something like that. Um, I'm definitely feeling quite I've been better, but it's mostly just it's mostly just like again feeling very sort of um like kind of itchy eyes, sort of you know dealing with that sort of stuff. Nothing like critical. Um, but uh, but yeah, we will persevere. Hey, Olaf, very good to see you. Especially because, excuse me, I have been looking forward to doing Phantom Brigade. I know I've been a little gloomy last couple of weeks, and looking at uh, looking at Steam was definitely a contributor to that. So just a quick reminder that this game is still on sale as part of the Steam summer sale. It's 25% off. I believe that is the lowest that the game has been discounted over its lifetime. And I will talk a bit about the game and my kind of my relationship to it. Not a significant one, but one that should be discussed. And I'm going to try and make the appeal to buy and support. But seizure warning: a very small percentage of people may experience a seizure when exposed to certain visual images, including flashing lights or visual patterns. These seizures may have a variety of symptoms, including lightheadedness, altered vision, eye or face twitching, jerking or shaking of arms or legs, disorientation, confusion, or momentary loss of awareness. Immediately stop playing and consult a doctor if you experience any of these symptoms. If you or any of your relatives have a history of seizures, please consult a doctor before playing, or something to that effect. So, we are enjoying Phantom Brigade tonight. So, this is something that I have been playing back since its early access days. This is a really, really good game. This is a game, I believe the company that made it originally was Tetragon Works. And Tetragon Works sort of merged with Brace Yourself Games, the indie Katamari. And it sort of went up. It was released into early access not too far away from the other Brace Yourself game, Phantom Brigade. And one thing I was actually delighted by was when we hosted someone playing Phantom Brigade, they'd said, I'm really loving Phantom Brigade, and I've played this other game, I don't know if you've heard of it, Industries of Titan, and Brace Yourself is quickly becoming my favorite game developer. And I was like, that is so wonderful to hear that. I am glad that things outside of my little bubble are not the consistent story behind everyone. So the reason why I wanted to say this is that I covered this in early access. I'm covering this now because I was given a key from Brace Yourself Games in order to cover it. Obviously, my enjoyment of the game is pretty apparent. There is a certain point where it ceases to be about the fact that you were just given a code, and it's about your enjoyment of the game, but it's important to disclose this stuff. One of the reasons why I wanted to do that straight out the gate is to talk about the fact that while I mentioned that it is currently 25% off on Steam, it also has mostly negative reviews. This is despite the fact that it's mostly positive under all reviews. So under recent reviews, there is there's been a big thing. It's not exactly a review bomb, but basically, if you take a look at a lot of the negative reviews, they tend to be related to some really terrible news with Brace Yourself. And they are based on misunderstandings of the current state of the project. I wouldn't encourage going to the discussion forums because people are continuing to sort of state, how do I put it? Actually, sorry, just give me a quick second here. Yeah, so basically, I saw a new update on this thing, but it wasn't an official one. But yeah, basically, there's lots of discussion around. Okay, so like, maybe here's what I'll do. I don't really like dwelling on this, but because I've already kind of talked about the review thing, I wanted to at least get the... It's probably better to just talk about the basics. Brace Yourself Games was affected by a very large number of layoffs, and these are people who I've had the great pleasure of meeting in person. Clearly nobody is happy that happened, and I cannot imagine what that is like, because I think most people kind of know that if you go into game development, you're not really doing it for high finance. You're doing it because you have a great passion for it, and everything that I experienced, in terms of being able to meet these people and my continued interactions with people, both currently at Brace Yourself and formerly from it, have been that they are, really wonderful people, very passionate, and people who've given me some opportunities to work on some things that I wouldn't normally be able to in terms of somebody up my scale. So I have nothing but nice things to say about the people there. But it is, it is an unfortunate reality that gaming is a business. It's a business that relies on very large kind of outlays of capital over the course of production, which can be a very long period of time. Phantom Brigade, I believe, was in development for 7 years prior to its release. And over that period of time, you don't necessarily have revenue coming in, or if you do have revenue coming in, it is revenue from your previous games. And if you want to expand and take on more ambitious projects, that doesn't necessarily mean that your previous releases are going to cover it. So with all of that in mind, I think probably the most important news to me about that was that a lot of people who I think very highly of had to go and find work. I've still been in touch with a few of them, and it does look like they've moved on to really great opportunities. So, for instance, Demi is now the community manager for Slay the Spire. Ben, the UI designer, is currently working at Epic. But, my own feeling and my own hope is that everybody who was affected by that is not just moving on to something, but moving on to an even better opportunity. Now, the way that this has been... The response to this has largely been to take a look at, the recent Steam negative reviews. It is stating that the game has been abandoned, and this is not the case. The public statements from the developer have been that there are plans, there's continued development on the game. However, especially given this news, and especially given the fact that a lot of complaints about the game seem to stem from expectations that people had over the course of early access, relative to the game that was released, it's very clear to see why they will be very reluctant to say exactly what's going to be implemented into the game until they can see what is feasible to get done. I think that's a very reasonable stance for them to have, because Industries of Titan was also affected with this perception that the game didn't deliver on promises that were made, when really there was a small subset of things on the roadmap that was removed. They did a blog that was explaining it, and then you just had this group of people who were complaining about the same thing over and over and over again, and suddenly turning this into some, grand statement about Brace Yourself not keeping its promises. And so the deal is this: I clearly think very well about the developer, but I think and in the end, games are not going to get better unless we're willing to criticize them. But there is a difference between, saying this isn't really working for me in a game, and then just outright lying about the state of the game. I really like Phantom Brigade. I think Phantom Brigade is a great game the way it currently is. And that is really the only version of a game you ever should be buying, right? If you like the game, or if the game that you are buying seems like it's for you, pick it up. If you are buying a game hoping that it's going to develop into the game that you want to play, you really need to think about how mad you're going to be if it doesn't turn out that way. And I say this simply because even the best intentioned developer is ultimately going to have to make decisions that are the best for the project and may not be ones that you like. The example I love to give is Sunless Sea, which I think is widely regarded as a good game, at least a very influential game. It's one that sort of really made Fail Better Games in terms of its, its sort of status as a big narrative company. And its combat was originally turn-based. And there is, to this day, a subset of early access people who will not forgive Fail Better Games because they switched from turn-based to real-time combat, despite the fact that the switch from turn-based to real-time combat made the majority of people happy. I don't think anybody really says that Sunless Sea's combat is like its highlight, but the fact of the matter is that the turn-based combat wasn't working for them. They decided to replan it, and there's a group of people who just simply do not like this otherwise really good game as a result of that. And I don't think developers want people to be upset like that, and I hope that people don't want to be upset like that. So in the end, I definitely feel that the developer could use a bit of love right now. I don't think you should buy a game out of pity. I think you should buy a game because it's a good game. But I definitely feel like now is the time to, if you have liked Brace Yourself stuff, or if you like games like this, there are actually a few things that you can do to try and make things better. So number one, if this has been on your wish list, if this looks like something that's good to pick up, it is currently 25% off, so it's about $30 Canadian right now. Now, everybody's circumstances are different. That might be a lot of money to you, that might be nothing to you. But if you've been thinking about picking up the game right now, 25% off isn't a bad discount. It's about $10 off right now. If you're going to wait for it to be like 30% off or 50% off, sure, I mean, you're doubling the money that you save, but in the end, is the $10 going to really make that big of a difference? Now, if you're waiting for features to be added to the game, definitely wait, because, in the end, the features that get added may not be for you. But the other thing is that if you like this game, and you've not yet written a review for it, I really do recommend that you do that right now. Because like I said, I think there is a difference between, giving your thumbs up or your thumbs down on the basis of the game. There are popular games that I have given a poor review for, because in the end, I just didn't get it. It was not for me, and I think it's completely fine to articulate that the game's not working for you. I don't think speculation in terms of the status of the developer is useful, right? Either Phantom Brigade is fun to play now, or it isn't fun to play. And I think the fact that I've been playing this for a few years kind of gives you an idea about how I think the game works in terms of its playability. Is there more stuff I'd love to see in it? Of course. I frankly, I'm not going to be happy until everyone at Brace Yourself makes this their life's work, and they never move on from any other game. Oh, and somehow that they clone all of themselves, and the next group winds up becoming, slaves to Industries of Titan. And then, I don't know, maybe they come up with a third clone, and then they can work on all the Necrodancer games as well. The fact of the matter is that, we have potentially unreasonable expectations on these things. The fact that BattleTech can release with 3 DLC, and when they say that they're moving on to the next project, they call it abandoned. We need to get some perspective. And so with that in mind, that's kind of where I'm trying to make my appeal here. I think some of the things that you can do that are, helpful to a game in this situation right now would be, if you've been on the fence and if you're playing that game where you're waiting for a couple of bucks more, now might be the time to take the plunge, right? If you're waiting for it to go to 35%, are you really, is that cup of coffee difference really really gonna mean the world? If you own the game but you haven't reviewed it, it's a great time to do that, because that will help sort of offset some of the different the negative reviews here. And if you own the game on Steam, your review counts. If you have bought it, on another platform and put it in, then your review doesn't count. So, for instance, mine doesn't. Mine doesn't count towards recent reviews because I was given that press key. It's counted, like you can read it, but it's not going towards that overall count. And then I guess the last thing that I can say, and I've been talking kind of negatively about this side, and I want to, as much as I can, I want to be clear on how do I put it? I don't want this to sound overly negative, because there's actually there's a better framing for this, let's say. I have talked a little bit about how there are some parts, like some people who felt like they were, I don't know, offered or entitled to a certain thing, right? Sorry, I'm just trying to think of the right way to phrase this. And how it's been. Sorry, again, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. I think the complaints about the state of the game have sometimes made certain parts of the Discord a bit of a drag to hang out in for me. So there were some things that I kind of wanted to do, and eventually I sort of gravitated away from it because, when I go into the chat, there was like a while with one of the games when somebody would always be coming in and they would always be complaining about how the roadmap changed, and it just I had to finally just say, the game is what it is, right? Complaining about it is not going to change it. I'm having a good time, and I really wish you'd stop trying to drag me down while this is with what's going on here. So that probably wasn't the right. I don't know the best way to handle that. But the thing is that Brace Yourself has a really good team behind it. Demi and Maddie were two. Maddie was, Maddie's the communications director. Demi was a community manager. They put a lot of effort into sort of curating this really great space in terms of the Discord, and it's there, right? It's definitely one. In my view, I do still like hanging out there, and I do still like interacting with people. A really good example of this actually would be the Godless forum. where Daniel Kalupa, the developer for it, if I can't have fun, no one can. Yeah, exactly, Vanguard Master. Like, that's quite active, and the developer's constantly in there interacting with fans of the game. So this sort of stuff doesn't happen by accident, and I happen to know that there's some really considerable talent that's behind curating that environment. So the biggest thing that I can say here, that like both in terms of just, talking to developers, in terms of being able to, how do I put it? Like interacting with developers, interacting with people inside of the Discord, just generally keeping your act together and being able to make it a positive place to have, to have interactions, to want to be able to participate in and just be able to talk about and enjoy the game. I also think that stuff matters quite a bit. Because like I said, there have been a couple of instances where I've felt a little more reluctant to do certain things. And that's the opposite of how I want to be treating these games, right? I want to be going in and shouting from the rooftops how great Phantom Brigade and Industries of Titan and how great these games are and how much I enjoy playing them. Also, I should give credit to Godless, which is currently available to buy. And well, I know Warframe is quite famous for its community management. I actually think Brace Yourself does a wonderful job with community management as well. Like I think I would also say hello Narkexi. I'm still getting used to your new name. Yeah, no, like the challenge here, it's a difficult situation for me because again, if it winds up being that I'm opening the door to someone who's going to come in and sort of drag down the environment, that gives me a disincentive to participate and encourage this thing that I really like. And that's no fault of the developer. Like, it's not like Brace Yourself is dispatching these people who are complaining about the roadmap. So, yeah, with that in mind, it's one of these things where because, obviously everybody's asking you for money now, right? Streamers are asking you for money, game developers are asking you for money, news organizations are asking you for money, Twitter's asking you for money now. There's lots of places where people are asking for money, but these are the sorts of things where if you already own a game, these are ways that you can actually really help them. If you make it a pleasant community to engage with, this is absolutely the sort of thing that's going to result in more people checking out the game and interacting with the game. If you go in and you take the time to write a positive review on Steam, that's going to help offset the people who are speculating about the solvency of Brace Yourself. And more importantly, I cannot assume, I have to assume that what happened is going to be something that really drags down morale, and I have to think that it would be nice if I was working in a place like that during a tough time. It would be really great to hear from the players to say, you know what, I really like this game and I really enjoyed it. It was, for me, I actually really liked hanging out in a Phantom Brigade channel and someone saying that Brace Yourself was becoming their favorite developer, because it reminded me that there's more than just complainers on this stuff. So anyways, I'm so sorry for taking 20 minutes on that, but I kind of figured that if I'm going to talk about the game being on sale, on discounted, I wanted to take the minute to just address the scary red text at the start. Narkexi, are you still streaming Phantom Brigade? Or streaming at all, for that matter? Eventually. Well, for those of you that want to watch an eventual Phantom Brigade streamer, there's Narkexi, an Australian broadcaster. Okay. Let's go to the battle site. Actually, we might also be able to snap up an equipment convoy too. Yeah. So I'll wait till we... Actually, let's just stealth it. Give me the goods. At your order, the base flies into action and prepares for a fight. An engineer sprints towards the bay to check on the guns, passing a scout relaying combat data through the radio. There's shouting everywhere. At your side, someone's leg bounces up and down, boot heel tapping on the grate. You feel eyes on you, awaiting your command. Oh, actually, there's one other thing that I should mention, because there's a bit of Brace Yourself news that I can share. There is a new game under Brace Yourself Publishing that is coming out in a few days. So I believe it is July 25th. Actually, tell you what. Okay, I love the music for this game and all of that, but let's talk about the new game that's getting published by Brace Yourself Publishing, which is Super Raft Boat Together, which is coming out on the 25th. UA 3070 on the way and should be in your rig by the end of next week, so you'll have a proper settings to fiddle with and not be running a dreadful 20 to a 40p stream. Well, any Phantom Brigade is good, Phantom Brigade in my view. But congratulations on your new purchase. My video card's my oldest part in my computer, but I have no intention of upgrading it anytime soon. But it's always exciting to get new things. I am getting a little bit more. I am getting a solid state drive, though, because it's getting a little crowded here. Anyways, here is a trailer for the next thing coming out of Brace Yourself Publishing, keeping in mind that Godless is already out and available, and Cobalt Core is forthcoming. But this is Super Raft Boat Together, and its announcement, or its launch date trailer, or launch announcement. There you have it. There's a business shark. I mean, the business shark's really all you need to see. Chauncey. But yeah, this is a, as it says, co-op roguelike shooter builder. You are on a raft. You are surviving all of the terrors of the of the ocean, and you should play it with friends, which I feel is discrimination against the lonely. But I'm sure I'll find someone to play with at some point. Anyways, this definitely looks very charming. I was not indifferent to it, but it was one that I wasn't as excited by as, say, Godless. And then I watched Brace Yourself play it on their stream, and it was so fun to watch everybody like just run together and just like mess around with it. So yeah, needless to say, I'm a little more enthusiastic about it, having seen the team play it. Now, sounds like a team stream between you and some community members is in the books. We'll see. I've not normally been good at doing like co-op or multiplayer stuff, but there's always room for improvement. I was thinking of doing that because I am planning on streaming on Saturday, because I've normally done that for my birthday. But yes, that's right, it's my birthday. Worship me. But I don't have a good idea about like a co-op thing to do offhand. I might like improvise one, but I am gonna like just try and do a bunch of I'm gonna try and do a bunch of just like weird stuff. Use it on yourself, sir. Wait a minute. Do I get paid tomorrow? No. Next week. Suit up. I was gonna say, where are the enemies? But we've got 3 here. We're just dropping by. It is your birthday for Saturday now, so I won't resub till then. I did myself out of a sub announcement. I'm always very appreciative of the subs, but as I like to remind people, I don't take attendance, and it's like it's weird that people sub at all because there is like the free option. I appreciate it a lot because it helps me cover this stuff. But I try not to focus too much on that number because honestly, the number I need to pay attention to and I'd like to get better at is the concurrent views. And that's just because, you know, that's kind of a marker that I'm getting in touch with people and, you know, they're into it. So I try as much as I can to be cool about the sub thing. Plus, it's also so I will actually admit too, one of the little perks is to actually just see familiar faces come by every once in a while. Just need to get better at attending streams. I mean, your hours are a little unusual for me, so and I've not been the most consistent in terms of the time that I get started. So I'm actually rather happy to have you here at all. Okay, we don't have that much in terms of parts to check out here, so this doesn't have a defensive module, so I can't make that happen. It says mobility, but it comes at the cost. There's too much mass. Okay. Oh, but there was the burst rifle, so let's just yeah, so this is across the board better. That's all right. I know this has been like a ponderous start, but I am actually really feeling the effects of the weather. So part of the ranting has sort of helped me out, helped me just try and bear with my misery. 10:25. I don't watch streams in the morning. Then again, I don't watch streams that much. But I can't. I don't watch streams in the morning. I usually it's usually an evening thing for me, or maybe sometimes in the afternoon. But although I guess you work in a hotel, so I guess your hours might be a little unusual. I don't know. Commander, the base is circled around the perimeter. We're ready to pick the squad up if needed. The enemy won't hold the line if you. Will hold the site if you do so. IFF response negative. Treating us hostile, requesting immediate reinforcements. You live a crippled life, so you're at home, doing not a whole lot for 9 out of 10 days. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Sorry. For some reason, I thought you'd be back at work. You left that job, bad knee gave out in a public area of the hotel, so your guest had to pick you up off the floor. Management did nothing. Oh my God. I am so sorry to hear that. So the next time I hear from you and you are developing a successful video game, please remember the little people like me. Okay. So what I kind of wanted to try and do here was angle the enemy attacks towards... I want to try and angle the enemy attacks to a friendly fire incident. That's not going to happen, so my next best is to clonk the... well, okay, maybe not. First thing I want to do is try and use the marksman. Now this is not an ideal angle because it's not exactly perpendicular, but it's definitely... It's close to something I'd be wary of. So let's see, we move up like this. Okay. There's a specific plan that I've got for... Actually, you know what? I don't even need to get that fancy about it. You give your press key. You're shortlisted already. Thank you kindly. Okay, so this is just kind of, this is an insurance policy in terms of this tank. So next priority is going to be to harass the this unit, but I also want to try and get some hits from behind. So it's very likely that this unit's going to go and try and cause some problems to my Herald next turn. The only thing that's a bit of a drag is if I move up to the wall here. So I've sort of, it's, the sniper rifles effectively shut down my heavy weapon. So this is like the best that I can do, but the drawback is that if I start the shot, then it's going to be that much harder for me to go back. So, anyways, I'll be honest, I don't like the lack of firepower coming out here, but in the end, it's 2 tanks that we should be taking off the board here, and we're making progress towards an objective. So it's a I don't know, I'll give this like a C plus B kind of a turn. Not enough to seal the deal, unfortunately. So it looks like they're making a move on my Protector, which I think I'm okay with because I don't expect it to do that much damage. But, again, you always want the insurance policy. Okay, and this is... the elevated tanks are definitely a cool concept in this. So the elevation works specifically to do what this tank is trying to do here, which is to ruin my Protector's day. So I'm just going to keep the shield up and deal with the bad guys. And then in the meantime, I'm going to run ahead and take out the... I mean, where I can, definitely I want to harass the enemy. But the main priority is definitely going to be taking objectives. So the main threat to my units right now is this tank. So there's absolutely a chance that this is going to take the tank out, but I want insurance because everything else is like everything else is already taken care of. Welcome back, Vanguard Master. I'm probably going to wind up losing out on some scrap here, but my other insurance policy against the bad guys is to just let her rip as far as the big gun goes. So let's see how it goes. Okay, yeah, so the unit's already crashing. Oop, I wound up tagging my own guy. The drone is a rough location of the crate, but we're going to need another ping to ensure it's picked up. Stay at the location to finish this. So this unit's almost certainly eject, or not even almost certainly, because both arms are gone, so it's going to eject for sure. Although apparently it wants to limp at the start. Yeah, so everybody's good to go. Like we just let the drones do their thing. We'll give it one more turn so that they can eject, but alright, the crate is locked on, our drone has the cords and should be descending any second now. Alright, so we've got Vidar Workshop Charge, a Weight Reduction Mark 1, more battery, a bunch of melee weapons, and I'm assuming, yeah, we should be able to... Okay, didn't have enough for everything, but... Pretty decent haul. And we can go straight into the battle site at this point. Take them out. You followed a distress signal put out by the Home Guard to squash some enemy forces at this battle site. One of your pilots is jumpy. They mean business, Commander. They really want to win this war. Another shrugs. I reckon we can take them. What do you think, boss? Suit up. So we're going to take a quick run through the new goodies, because there was a new torso. It's not as light as the arrow. The Tsubasa legs they're also light, but unless I have weight reduction for them, they're not gonna help me here. Okay, so theoretically this Tsubasa arm, both of these Tsubasa arms may help me out with the light plate. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop this light plate. I don't think barrier plate increases... Well, okay. Apples to apples. Okay, so this is a lighter arm when all is said and done. Now, let's just think about the trade-off here. We're going from 369 arms to 209, or the rough equivalent. So we are really pushing. Oh, sorry, no, 309. So we're really starting to push the limits in terms of what these mechs can reasonably withstand. On the other hand, being able to have a highly mobile heavy gun is the whole point of the Manticore right now. So I'm going to put these Tsubasa arms on, and we'll give them the light plate, and then we will pray to high heaven. But we have got this up to 21. Also, this looks kind of amazing. Very wide stance. Okay, just want to get a story about what's going on with these legs. Improved cooling. Oh yeah, so the problem here is that the integrity is lower. So I'll stick with that. We'll move on to the Herald next. Again, I'm not thinking... I don't think there's any improvements here, but you never know. So this is a decent example of, like, when I'm trying to design a mech. So you look at this on paper and you say, okay, this is a 28 speed mech. I add these level 10 Tsubasa legs. Surely this is, you know, surely I would be a fool to add these ones. But what I really want to pay attention to is the defensive module. So this thing has got reinforced plate, this thing's got hollow plate. So here's what we do instead. We put the reinforced plate on for comparison. I expect it's going to be heavier. Oh no, this is still lighter. Cool. So what am I giving up? Not much. Yeah, so the hollow plate gets me to 28. In fact, if I don't put any plate on it, that's even better. If I give it basic plate, I get too heavy. So remember what I was doing before. So one of the reasons why I did this, right? Let's just compare this to the Tsubasa that I had before. So even with... sorry, let me change this. Oh, nope, they're both empty. Okay. So just on its own, with the... so with the legs, I have the full speed that I need. I've got higher integrity, higher barrier, and the same heat dissipation, which means I can use this defensive module for basically anything else. I also get the whole business, like I could try and compare with, you know, other things in terms of weight. But basically what I'm going to do here, I do have the option of going for the hollow plate if I want, because that should be equivalent to what I had before. But what I'm going to try and do is I'm actually going to try and give some of this back in terms of putting on, like, you know, if I can get the standard reactor, maybe to move something to something with more cooling, or maybe to, you know, go from defensive modules, replace those into something which has, I don't know, an accuracy module or something like that. Like, these are some ways, now that I've sort of achieved the ideal trade-off in terms of power and mass, what I want to start doing is focus on some of the other characteristics that make this a really good mech, which in this case is its mobility and its ability to put a lot of firepower out. Now, I did say that I was going to do my laundry, so I'm going to put up the break sign for a little bit. I'm going to try and make it a short break, but I'm also going to make some tea while I'm doing that. I am moving laundry from the washer to the dryer, so it's not going to take forever, but it's also not just me trying to, like, even things out. That's also kind of funny because I set a 50-minute timer. It's not even been 50 minutes on the stream yet, but that's how time works. So I will see you all in a little bit. I'm sorry that there's been relatively little gameplay relative to all the other stuff that I'm doing, but we will be able to get a good hour in, I think, between the end of this break and the next time I need to step off. So I will see you all in a little bit. I'm going to run ads so I can pay the rent, or just so we can drop the pre-roll, whichever you believe. See you in a bit. Okay, I'm really sorry about the time that took. The laundry wasn't quite ready despite the timer going off, and I think I lost like half of you over that. So, my bad, but sometimes you gotta... Sometimes you actually need to do the life stuff. So... That scared you, you forgot you had the stream. It wasn't that long. Like, I know it was probably like about 10 minutes, but like, still. Or like 8, but anyways. Again, you gotta take the opportunities where you can. So, one of the considerations that I have here is what kind... So, one of the things I want to take a look at with these mechs are what are the perks that I'm getting from the current setup. So, I've got these Nox arms. I've got a Nox 7. This is a Nox 8. The thing is that this Nox 8 has composite, which I think is slightly lower mass. Still not quite enough for me to go over the edge. And again, plated, okay, but not like perfect. So, so yeah, the real gains that I can see here is moving. So I think if I can take this to hollow plate, no, okay, so it has to be light plate here. One useful question, right? So I do have a little bit of space that I can give up. So right now we're using the standard reactor. So the standard reactor, it's kind of worth thinking about why you're trying to do certain things. So in this case, we have 110 barrier generation, 15 heat dissipation, 100 heat capacity, 80 power. So what I would maybe want to try and achieve with an alternative spec for this would be give up some power, because I know I can make that up in terms of mass. And then the question would be, what is the alternative? What is the thing that I'm able to get as a result of, you know, like when I give up that power, what am I getting in response? And what I would really want out of that would be better heat dissipation and higher heat capacity. So first we want to see is, are there any candidates for something even close to that? So the takeoff doesn't give us the heat dissipation. So also remembering we're at 80 for power right now. So so there's the hot rod. So that gives us, I believe, better everything except power. So improved heat dissipation indirectly improves damage by allowing more frequent attacks. Yeah. Otherwise, it's the exact same. So hot rod's a candidate. Not that interested in the restoration here. Charger has the same same for everything else except higher heat capacity. Increased heat capacity indirectly improves damage by allowing longer attacks. But frequency is kind of the name of the game for the Herald here. So I'm thinking probably the hot rod is the one I want to be focusing on. 76.8, 74.8. Okay, interestingly enough, so the game seems to rate longer attacks as a higher, kind of a more valuable one as measured by power. So let's try and switch this to a hot rod core. So we're down to 26. The question now is, am I going to be able to make that back in terms of light plate? I refuse to believe we're out of light plate. Okay, we're going to go back to the... I actually should have done this a long time ago, so if we select... I know there's a select all, I just can't remember... Okay, here we go. I don't want to scrap and detach, I just want to detach. I'm sure I will regret this, but I've been messing around with customization enough that I think the time has come for me to... Okay, so that's already brought us up to 28. Okay, that goes down to 27, so we'll turn that back into light. With the Tsubasa, if we give that... Okay, no, that's got to be light. And presumably hollow plate's gonna... Yeah, that brings us down. So the other thing that I want to focus on is right now I'm rocking this Elbrus, right? So the next question would be, if without the light plate, this thing is looking at 25.9. In fact, so this is a apples to apples. So if we just take a look at what we've got here in terms of the level at a base level, in terms of things that will give me more mobility, we've got medium Nox torsos. We already have an Elbrus 8, so this thing is plated with higher integrity and a flashpoint thruster. This one's got a sidestep thruster, so lower dash, although we don't use the dash as much. Looks like it already gets a bonus to power. I'm guessing maybe because the sidestep is a -1. So these Noxes are equal. And I get customizable thrusters there. Yeah, so at the very start, like this Nox is already... Well, okay, it's an improvement because it doesn't have a thruster attached to it, so... Or is it? No, because that's 25.9 as well. But yeah, so like these medium Noxes on their own, in terms of mass and heat dissipation, they're already a big improvement, so... This arrow is maybe given up a little bit too much on integrity, but this is intriguing because of its improved cooling. I believe it also has the same flashpoint, so this arrow is a real possibility. And then if I'm feeling particularly bold, I can try the improved cooling off of the Tsubasa. But that's maybe a bridge too far. I don't know, let's give it a try. Actually, I need a defensive module as well. Ah, that's where I got trapped. It's all well and good to have these offensive modules. Well, no, hang on, because we're also giving up mass. So let's see if we can make this work with this arrow for a start. Okay, 22.8 versus 22.9. This has a flashpoint. We can probably equip this with a flashpoint. This has got better heat dissipation. Total 600. This is a really good torso, though. Okay, I'm going to try the arrow. So we'll give this the hot rod. Yeah, so that's already 26. So for that, I would need to give it... Oh, I don't even have a generator for it. We're just short of where we need to be. Okay, so we ditched the arrow. I don't have a flashpoint. That's interesting. There's our 28. So as always, we just see if we can get away with slightly Okay, so then the question is, what's the best module that I can put in this thing? If I put in a heat sink, I almost certainly lose. Yeah, I lose too much speed. I could put a capacitor in. I think I prefer the capacitor over the heat sink at this point. But yeah, so I mean, again, we've really hollowed this thing out defense-wise, but we hopefully will be increasing the rate at which it can. Yeah, it's an absolute requirement that all of my mechs move as close to 28, barring other conditions. But like 28 is actually the fastest you can make a mech if you try to make it go higher. So the reason why I've been doing all of this tweaking here was originally what I was starting to do was put back some heavy armor. But then I sort of thought, well, what if we get really creative? So, like, for example, with this Manticore, there's sort of a similar argument that you can make. So, like, we've got this arrow torso here, but technically these should be improvements, right? So this arrow body has composite 2, which gives it a lighter mass. So the next question would be, okay, is there an even lighter mass that we can apply here? So the answer to that is no. If there was a defensive module inside of one of these torsos, that might be possible. So like there's a possibility here with the Elbrus, with a... Actually, that Elbrus might do the trick. So I'm just going to play around for a second here. So if we give this thing the light plate, that's like a 30% reduction to its weight. Yeah, so this arrow winds up being... this arrow actually winds up being faster than the... Oh, but it's got an Atlas thruster, so even if I throw the overdrive on it, it's not going to be as fast. Yeah, see how that goes to 21-1. Okay, so the next... So this flashpoint, on the other hand, is a bit more manageable. So we're going to try the same trick here. And again, we got to give it the overdrive because of the extra power. And we compare that to the arrow body we were running with. Yeah, so in that case, we were able to get an extra point of movement out of that. So next thing we'll do, we'll just compare. So lower integrity, but we are giving up... Okay, so integrity is higher overall. So really, we basically just traded out some barrier in exchange for the light plate. Everything else is the same. So I feel good about that. We'll just strip it for the parts. Excuse me. So we've got 16.3 on these Nox legs, but these should be an improvement already. Problem with the heat dissipation, but... Excuse me. The Tsubasa's even lighter. Got this up to 24 now. So I forgot to horse race the mobility modules. Okay, so we've got a 16.3. 18.5. I think 16.3 is the best we can get. Wait. Yeah, so this is the best I can do here. The Nox 1L. So we're down to 11.7. Compare that with the Tsubasa with the light. We're at 9.9. And then in practical terms, because in the end we're going to care about how quickly the unit moves. Yeah, so it's one point of movement. I'm pretty sure this is going to be... I'm pretty sure this is the lightest we can get. Nope, apparently our arrow arms. There is a cost in terms of heat for this, though. Okay, I need to think a little more carefully before I do this. So it's all well and good for me to say that I'm dropping the light plate, but it does actually matter what I'm replacing this with. So, this is a defensive module, so this Nox can actually be lighter. So practically we're looking at 24 on that. Okay, so if you give it these skinny Nox arms here. Again, on the condition that it have a defensive module. So we're still at 24, and the drawback is that we don't get the heat dissipation of the Tsubasas. So in that case, these pay off better. Okay, I don't want to do, like, I'm not going to spend the whole time on the Herald again. I did just want to take a minute here and see for the Nox arm. Yeah, so this is kind of tempting here with this this Nox here. And we can afford to give that a hollow, which means we might be able to actually, yeah, so if we give you a light, can I give you a heat sink yet? Aha! So same story here. We take a look at the Nox. We see, is there something better that we can do? I think I prefer the cooling. I prefer weight to cooling. Or do I? How much am I getting on that heat dissipation? 2 heat dissipation. So this is going to be important if I trade out. So for instance, we're at 5.5. So if I go to like a 4.7, that's not that big of a loss. But if I go down to 3.5, then that's a... Well, I mean, that's effectively equal, but... Although again, if I shave off some more mass... Okay, so let's just say for the sake of the argument, what's the lowest weight that I can go for? So 11.5 it looks like. Now, I don't necessarily want to commit to that, but let's, for the sake of the argument, go with it. And we switch the heat sink to a 3. Okay. So, the last thing that we do now is we start seeing if we can trade up. So if we can bring this up to a hollow plate. No. Can I bring this up to a slightly heavier... So we're at 11.5. So 12.1 or 12.3 gives me better heat dissipation. Yeah, not quite there. Even 12.3 is too much, so. So in the end, we've sort of maximized the heat dissipation. That's where I wanted it to be. My capacity could be better, but I'll live with it. And again, like it's a very weak mech, but we've kind of already decided on that. We've got the Manticore up to 24, so that's already moving faster than my equivalent to the Herald in most builds. For the longbow. So main focus here is just to make sure that I've got... So like right now I'm sitting on this Elbrus torso. I've got the hot rod thruster, I've got an overdrive in it. Like I can probably do better in terms of improving the frequency. Now again, I still want to keep it at 28. But are there some trade-offs that we can get in terms of improving this overall performance? So like right now, if I've got this overdrive, that's because I'm supporting this really, I'm supporting a platform with very high heat dissipation, or attempting to, and very high defense, but it's a range, like it's one of my longer ranged units, so maybe I can afford to start giving away some of those gains in terms of first of all, in terms of like okay, so I want to maximize heat. I want to maximize heat dissipation, and in order to do that, I can give up weight. Because that will allow me to switch my my reactor to a what was it? Hot rod, I think. And again, it's the frequency of the sniper attacks that I'm looking for here. So, first of all, it's composite, which has mass. So without the light plate, we're at 21.2. With the light plate, we're at 14. So this is already one of my lightest torsos. Although the Tsubasa is better. Although it's got the Logi thrusters, so that's going to be a catch. This arrow is a little more attractive, though. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the defensive module. The other possibility is we take the offensive module and we put... actually, I didn't need to do that. So with the mobility module, if we got something with the mobility module, I can throw a generator in it. So this one has both a defense module and a mobility module, which makes this a very difficult one to compete with. I might even be able to get away with weight reduction. So. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're sticking with this one pretty much forever. Yeah, so this is up to 28 now. So let's take a different approach to this one. So let's put the hot rod in, and let's say that everything else needs to build around it. So like the VDAR legs. So one thing to look at right now is before we switch that out, we had the overdrive, so we're at 2. So the question now is, by going to a hot rod, am I able to get significant enough improvements for the legs that we can make up for the so heat dissipation 21. Yeah, so it's 6 points of heat dissipation. So the Vidar compared to its next... Okay, so we actually already have legs that are better in terms of heat dissipation. So that's a no-brainer at this point. So then the question is, do I hit them with the weight reduction, or do I hit them with the generator? Okay. Neither at the moment, but we'll check that out later. So we do the same thing here with the arms. Right now we've got light plate. First of all, can I make them lighter? Yes, I can with these Nox arms. Can also make them cooler, but that's a separate issue. Okay, so we do this with the arm. Now, unfortunately, we're giving up the precision sensor, so we are giving up. Oop. Okay, so that's already at 28. So now the question here is, am I going to be able to equip... So number one, am I going to be able to equip something with the offensive module so that I can get the precision back? It doesn't really look like it, so let's, just for the sake of the argument... This is a 15-6. Can I get something with an offensive module with a lower mass? Yes. But I don't think that's going to be enough for the... Holy crap, that worked. So, we throw the precision sensor on you, and there we go. So we still have our 28. We've obviously hollowed it out in terms of integrity, but we went from 2 to 1.6 in terms of the action cooldown. So finally the Protector. Now the Protector, we're taking a totally different approach with it because it needs to carry the Hurricane and it needs to carry the Svalin shield. So if I have a better Svalin, I'll consider it. In this case here, it's only minor improvements for a huge boost in mass, so I'm not going to worry about that one. There is a lighter machine gun that we can equip, but it does less damage. Yeah, the Torrent. It's a fairly substantial drop, although it's like 4... Well, okay. So it's 4 points of mass. The damage per second doubles, though. Yeah, so I gotta stick with this one. So, like, I've got my work cut out for me on this one. We've already got the overdrive on it, and like, essentially, there's a few competing priorities in terms of this particular mech. So I have a minimum mass that I need to hit. I think it's above 85, so I'm just curious if I can... 84.8 doesn't quite do it. I've already got so many big things on it that... Oh no, 82 apparently still counts. Okay, so it's below 80. So really what I want to be going here, priority number 1 is a target mass of 80. From that target mass of 80, then I want to be maximizing power. And then, of course, it's important for this one because it's a defender. It also needs to have the armor needs to be as high as it can be. So right now I'm rocking this VDAR. It's an old VDAR with a weight reduction Mark II. So the thing is that in terms of power generation, like this is fine, but I could, in theory, be doing other things. So between weight reduction and generator, yeah, it's roughly the same. I guess the weight reduction is a little bit better for the thrust. But let's start by seeing, do we have something with better mass that also has a higher total integrity? So this is 1100. It's a heavy, so probably not, but like this Nox I'd be willing to consider. I don't know why this has got the because of the overdrive reactor. All right. So like this Nox is probably a sleeper, just because the heat dissipation isn't as good, but it does give me a boost to power because of the sidestep thruster. This is another good example. Again, we pay in the form of heat dissipation. But we don't lose that much integrity. Oh, the catch is though we don't have the mobility module. So, but the arrow. Okay, so the arrow heavy I do. The arrow heavy is a really tough one because of that high barrier. Oh right, but we give it up. Okay, yeah, so the problem here is that the lack of mobility, the slot kind of kills me for most of the options here. But let's actually try something with this sidestep. So I guess I need to give you a capacitor here. So if we compare that with the VDAR and give it a weight reduction and the overdrive as well. I'm hoping I didn't mess with this too much. The weight reduction's the better of the two. Okay, so if we contrast that, right now this is the battle of the heavies. So this already gives me a point and change, even though, and the important thing to note here is that this technically has a higher mass, but I think it's the total power that I get out of this thing that's pushing it over the edge. So this is our best outside option right now, and we're going to see if we can build. So the question now is, can I build on this? Is there a better heavy torso that I can deploy? So that's equivalent in mass. Okay. Again, I feel nervous about that one because of its reliance on regeneration, but for the sake of the argument, so this one's with the weight reduction. And it wins with the generator as well. So the problem with this one is the negative power. I like the possibilities brought on by this. Actually, this is basically the same torso. But, most importantly, the thruster I equip isn't as good. So we do get a fraction of a point off of that one. So heat dissipation's not as good. Heat generation... I don't know. I feel like this is the better of the two options. I would have preferred a different thruster, but I feel like we can get that out of the scrap. Okay, so we're slouching towards Bethlehem. I more or less have what I need here. I'm just completely... The thing here is that this is completely reimagining the Brigade. So I am actually... The reason I want to take the time on this is that I'm going to be able to scrap like a world of stuff out of this. Okay, so I do have the option at this point of going for the medium torso. Now, again, I'm making quite a few compromises here, right? Like if you take a look, okay, all of a sudden I've gone from a VDAR at 1100 to a 3H at, 1037. Now we're considering medium torsos and, something sub 1,000. But what I'm really doing here is this is really about trying to get as close to that 80 as I can in terms of weight. We'll be doing this with the legs and arms too, but like right now there's some obvious improvements that I can make in terms of the torso. So if I can find that sweet spot in terms of mass and weight. So actually this is another good example here, right? Like we've got super high integrity with these. So there's no rule saying I can't deploy at least a couple of these torsos. I think the arrows probably... Like this is a decent example of one. We get the offensive module, thruster, and reactor. We get everything that we could want out of this one. Yeah, so this is actually a no-brainer. So we're already up to 17 in terms of the speed here. I think anything else we start giving up too much in terms of weight. So I guess the next question now is, what are the 80 mass items that I can... Also, did I... Yeah. That's fine. It's like this is one where I can probably equip a heavier... this is one where I can probably equip like heavier legs or something like that, but the way that I'm getting the speed out of this one is by making the mass go too low. So that's a non-starter. What I'm really looking to do here is to shave like 1.8 in terms of mass off of other things. So this is the best I can do if I focus on the mech. Now, the appeal here is that it does have this sidestep thruster, and the drawback is that the integrity takes a huge hit. So I'll say that this is a last resort. It is really, like, the combination of the power and the mass really do make me like this, but I feel like there are other improvements I can be making that I should be focusing on first. So first thing we want to do, it's the arm. So the arm that's carrying the shield, I want that to be as light as possible. This is the 1L, and it's a composite, so I think we've already stripped this as low as we can. No, apparently this knocks is a big bonus. Because it's got the light plate. Yeah, not so good when you... Okay, so again, there's only one priority for this thing, and that's to be as light as possible. So having done that, we lock you in. So this heavy arm has a few roles to play. So we want it to have, priority number 1, we want it to have high integrity. Priority 2, we want it to contribute enough weight to keep this as a heavy mech. And then priority number 3, ideally we get some kind of a sensor that will make it good. Like, this is a good arm, right? It's a blue heavy. But again, the question here is there one that will allow me to keep my mass above 80? So like, this is a good example, right? We can move the number up by 1. And the drawback here is that because these are mediums, we give up quite a bit of integrity. Oh, this one's such a shame. So it's just a hair too light. This is a decent candidate. So maybe consider that Nox 2M. This one's too light. Okay, you know what? For illustration, because I can throw a generator in this thing too. Yeah, so this gets a defensive module, but if I make this light, then that's not really gonna cut it. Yeah, this is a 14.6, but again, not heavy enough. Yeah, so we give up too much for everything else here. So this is as good as we're going to get the arm. And again, the good news here, so I don't want to put hydraulics on it, and I don't want to put weight reduction on it, because weight reduction turns me into a medium class, but I throw a generator on this thing. Turns out we have the exact same mobility that we did otherwise, but... alright, so now we get to do the same thing with the legs. Now, first of all, these things are equipping hydraulics, so again, we have a little bit more flexibility in terms of arms. Again, now I should have actually checked that ahead of time. So let's just do a quick check. If I ditch the mobility, it's 579. Can I get a good combination of mass and integrity? This 2M is an improvement. Didn't I just like switch between these two? This one's a little too wimpy in terms of integrity. Yeah, so throw a generator on that. Now we're up to 19. So final step. Can we put some legs on this thing, which are reasonably tough? So we're at 689. Can we keep the mass above 80? It's like, this is a decent example, except that they are kind of skinny. Like the total integrity. This is 689 compared to the 400 and change from these. Although this, again, pretty much... Oh, hang on. That puts us at a class 2, so I guess we have to be above 81. Nope, not even that. So I guess it is 82 that we're looking to keep at. So I don't see an improvement that we can make unless we give back something in terms of light plate here. But we slap a generator on these guys. We're up to 20 for our protector. So, like, overall, right, if you think about what we did here, we didn't give up that much in terms of integrity, but we were able to improve the speed considerably on this guy. And then there's other tweaks that I can do in terms, so, like, if I wanted to try and play the game of, like, improving my... Actually, these legs are kind of tempting. So, if it's a question of... Okay, so we'll ditch these. So again, the problem we've got here is that we're now too light, but again, I'm happy to add some extra weight. We want to get this close to 2, but it doesn't have to be to go over the edge. So there's the 2M arm. So most of this is a little too beefy. But at this point, we just skip the light plate. We can give it the hollow plate, or we can just move... Yeah. So in this case, as weird as it is, we actually wind up going for a tougher arrow arm just so we can move it up to the 82. So this is going to be a little bit harder just because we need... like, I need to account for the 30% off, but I'm just going to eyeball it at this point. I might even be able to get away with just throwing this one on. Yeah, darn close. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, just in this weight class, I want to see if I can get a better arm for it. So, for instance, this gives us higher integrity. Well, it's actually a false economy here, but it does give us better heat dissipation. So I'll put this Nox 1L on. It has to have a defensive module, though. I am curious if... so that reduces us to... yeah, so that doesn't do the trick. Yeah, so the lighter ones... Okay, yeah, so that 1L actually doesn't work because of its weight. So, again, we've wrung out every last bit of efficiency that we can get inside of the... inside of our parts here, which is good. So even with something big like the Protector, which has, you know, it has a totally different spec. All of our mechs are 20 or higher, which is a pretty significant accomplishment for us. Now, I will be honest, I would actually kind of prefer to, I would kind of like to get rid of the parts that I'm not using right now. Okay, I'm going to say all of these go. I'm probably going to wind up regretting this, but... Okay, under primary weapons, I'm going to need to make some choices here. So the idea here would be to keep... So I don't see a need for the Svalin. No, we can hang on to these. There are a couple of these, like, so the thing is, some of these are improvements. Or not improvement, but like some of these are options I might want to hang on to. Although, I'm trying to think, I can't see why I would want a sidearm like this. The Blast 2, and actually the Fire Starter, because I'm clearly not using that. But like missiles I might use, shields I might use, axe and saber I might use, so all of those stay in the loadout. Okay. primary weapons. Same story here. So right now, my focus is going to be, so like if I compare the Sharp here, 624 to 720, this is a slightly better, this is better on concussion, but this does slightly better damage. Okay, SR lock. So slightly higher heat generation, but at this point I think we can get rid of this particular lock. We've got 2 alpenglows. I would have thought that this is the better one, but it actually looks like, for one reason or another, this one actually does better damage overall. How many of these sabers do I want? They're almost identical. They've all got different perks. So yeah, the weapons are really hard to deal with because there's not as much redundancy. And I do want the option of equipping different weapons. Now, the final thing is that there's a ton of subsystems here. It's obviously really hard, so like what I would probably prefer is if I could somehow group all of these, like if I get all the barrier plate together in one place, because I need to kind of, like, I can technically use this on a lot of different types of mechs. So I think I'm just going to accept that this is a bit of a wasteland here, and we want to just move on with the mission. The worst one, though, would be... Okay, so we got 1, 2... so let's say with the... I can at least do this with the end... Nah, you know what? Let's not even bother with it. Now, because I've scrapped all my parts, I need to make sure that... Like, I better hope that this loadout works, right? But I think we'll be able to do some magical things. What a persistent bunch. Command won't commit any more drop squads at the site, so let's get this over with. Okay. We have got a tank with an assault rifle, a tank with an autocannon. We've got a missile launcher and a handgun. We've got a marksman rifle, and we've got a railgun repeater. So the railgun repeater is the one... Railgun repeater is a big threat to my team overall. I want to see if anybody's coming after the heavy guy. Okay, so there is a threat. I'm wondering if there's an option where we just let her rip and then... You know what I hate? So, I just got my alert for my laundry. Okay, so the problem that I have with this is that I know I need to defend myself against the rockets. So, no, it's nothing to do, it's just the fact that, like, I took so long on my customization that okay, so I think my second best here is just to sort of run through. And then dash, and then that's kind of the prep for the next turn. So not exactly how I would have thought I would have used this thing, but this is what speed enables. Okay, that's kind of a weak attack. What I'm hoping to do here is cause some trouble in the back rows. Well, they've kind of forced my hand into... Okay, so one thing I can do here is a big dash. Cool. That's a good start. Actually, you know what? It doesn't even need to be that clever. If I just hop up here... Push that a little bit further. Okay, so that's like right to the limit in terms of my heat. Alright, I'll have to do. Now, ideally, my marksman's gonna go munching on tanks. So we're not quite in two tanks dead mode, but what I think I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna snipe the one, and then we're gonna change our attention to his companion. Okay, so far we've avoided any collisions. So then the last question is, how do we navigate... Oh, hang on. So it does look like there is a small collision. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. That is honestly not my favorite move, but we gotta make it work. Please do not crash into your own unit. That crosses over a little bit to the end of the next turn, but this works very nicely in terms of maximizing the heat that, the damage that the enemy faces. Okay, so I'm gonna deal with my laundry really quick. I'm sorry that we've not actually committed a turn. I'm gonna deal with the allies really quickly when I get back, but I do actually need to get I need to make sure that I get my laundry out of the thing. So again, I will. It will not be as long as last time. I can assure you of that. But we will be back for some more. We'll be back for some more Phantom Brigade in a little bit. Okay, so this is the advantage of waiting a little bit on your timer. It it will actually be done. So again, this is a for dress rehearsal for the not even dress rehearsal. This is the test for the newly designed Brigade, where essentially we try to maximize speed regardless of the mech. The only difference here is that the Protector is not. Everything else, speed is the priority. For the Protector, heaviness is the primary concern. So the last thing that we need to do here is just make sure that our allies are able to work. Now, I don't really like this setup here because in the end, like, the sniping is cool. The fact that it's sniping something it knows it can't hit is not. And unfortunately, I think the terrain is really going to hurt us on any of these. So, we move our tank up onto some high ground like so. We should get a nice clear shot of these jokers. Yes! Now that is much more interesting. Okay, so this is a shotgun tank. So very cool, but I think that's going to need some tender loving care so it doesn't get killed. Finally, we do have our big bad support. Now, because this thing has not been designed for speed, it's gonna have some trouble. So I think we're just going to let this guy lumber along and get into position. I am a bit worried about the railgun repeater here. It does 528 damage. And it's shooting across the field, but we can't have it all. Alright, the debut of the squad. We're going to start by watching the fancy dancing at the start. No collisions. Good start. Excuse me. Glad we got a crash, but it doesn't look like the thing's dead. Especially when this song's going on. Narcolepsy. One of my favorites is to see the assault rifle going off, just to see this guy running through with all the bullets going on in the background. That is always a fun image. Looks like those missiles were on their way while we dashed. They may still be a problem, but we'll find out. Alright, this guy's probably toast. This guy's got some respectable damage to him already. We lost one unit. That's too many. Make sure that that was the last casualty, or command will be hearing about this. So the missiles definitely don't look like they're on their way to the to my heavy here. I'd just like to point out that all the trees being knocked down can't be good for the environment. So, war. The first casualty of the war is the woodlands. Anyways, if you want to know what that looked like in real time. So it is worth worth taking a minute to reflect on what was enabled by a lot of this. So this is the first turn I've been able to fire 3 times with my assault rifle. Now we did have the assistance of a sniper, right? They went after this unit in here, and that probably did a respectable amount of damage. But it's also worth remembering that we were able to, with the marksmen, they were able to disable 2 of the tanks. And I actually don't know what unit that missile's targeting. For all I know, it could be coming after the Herald. So this unit's going to eject no matter what. Oh man, so okay, so not only did we just rock them, okay, so 4 of the units that we opened that turn with are disabled. They're either ejecting or they're straight up dead. On the odd chance that that was targeting the Herald, I want to So at this point, we're really just piling on. Gonna second dash in just for safety. This is definitely the kind of weapon you want to be firing right into the enemy's back. Okay, so it's a little too hot for that, but we'll move forward, then we'll dash, still too hot. Like, remember, it used to be the case that with this mech, it would take a really long time for us to get into the action, and here, this unit, I think, is just completing its dash at the time it starts firing into its back. That's, like, I never would have imagined we would be able to pull off something like that in this kind of a loadout. In fact, I think one of my biggest problems is going to be trying to avoid friendly fire. It's kind of like a Hail Mary shot, really. Yeah, there's no way we're going to be able to hit that guy while he's dashing, but of course I'm going to try it. This isn't even about the scrap at this point. This is just about bragging rights. Yes, the only unit that's not participating in that is the Herald, just because I'm a little worried that there might be a missile that's coming after them. So, we are going to do the slow motion again, but this is mostly just so I can see what happens to this missile. I was definitely not going for the Herald. It's probably going for the tank. Oh, I didn't even pay attention to where this guy's attacking. This could be a problem. Okay, no damage to this guy so far. But we're about to watch a fireworks show. sniper was going after this guy. Is scrap a thing in this game? We're backing them into a corner, just a little more boss, and we can get those civilians. Get to those civilians, just in case it sounds like I'm trying to do something terrible. So, hello? I thought this guy was running away. Alright, well that's gonna make life interesting. I genuinely thought that we were, I genuinely thought this guy was already ejecting. A little worried by that, but... That Crossfire game is your naval strategy game. Fire off strategy game. Fire off all the dopamine. Yeah, that was definitely a beautiful thing to see that work out. But like, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to take the time. I mean, this is not exactly a very fearsome force that we were up against, but like, just consider what was enabled specifically by being able to give mobility to these two units. Like the fact that my Vulcan started around here and it ends the map over here. You cringe every time you see allies stand in the crossfire friendlies. But you fail to recognize Vanguard Master. And isn't that just a wonderful way? Don't you feel happy every single time someone says to you, you fail to recognize? But not, have you considered? Not... I have another opinion. No, you have failed, sir, to recognize that in the I don't know, it's one of, if you want to like piss me off in an email, that is one of the easiest ways to do that. Because I had a moment in work where somebody had a methodological point that they wanted to make. I mean, like, if you do it casual, obviously context matters for all this stuff too, right? It's like, I'm not going to like consign you to the block list if you write what you fail to realize. I've gotten that on YouTube comments though. There's a guy who is making a methodological point, and it's like, it's a stats thing, right? And the entire thing was premised on the whole idea that we were making a mistake, and they went into like a lot of detail, and there was nothing technically wrong with what he said, but I was able to just answer it with one sentence, which was, this is not a mistake, this is a choice. And if they want elaboration, they will. Now, they didn't, but the thing is, I actually, as it turns out, like I wound up being in the same meeting as a director, and we wound up talking about something sort of related. And I didn't name names, but I did sort of say, it's actually funny you mentioned that, because, you know, I gave this presentation at this committee, and it definitely felt that they assumed that we were making an error when in fact we were optimizing for a different kind of an outcome. Because like, one of the things, I'm sure some of you probably are interested in like machine learning and stuff like that. Now, I appreciate there's a marketing thing going on here, but there is like, whenever you hear AI being appreciated here, like, AI is obviously a very old concept, and we're well out of a period known as the AI winter. But like, if you want to get an idea of how long people have been talking about AI and how, I mean, some of this stuff is still relevant. Like, one of the reasons why Lisp always comes up with AI is because Lisp was made around the time that people were trying to figure this stuff out. It was just a natural choice for that. I mean, there's other reasons for that too, but like, and what we're specifically enjoying right now is a particular approach to AI. So one of the things that didn't quite work out was this idea of trying to sort of systematize all of the rules of, intelligence or, or language or whatever you have, and to be able to create a particularly comprehensive or specific set of rules that will allow the machine to make some like judgments on its own or whatever you're specifically trying to do. What we've been enjoying right now is a period where the application of statistical models to understand some behaviors, and basically to get it to make a best guess in terms of what comes next. That has been very effective. And the application of these statistical concepts, these ideas of randomness and such, has been the big gain. So like there is a meaningful difference between sort of the machine learning and AI stuff, but you tend to notice, right, when you see a blog post or when you see a course, it'll usually say machine learning and AI. But the funny thing is, like, the SAS Institute isn't exactly like a super respected institution. It's basically just because SAS is quite expensive and it's an incredibly powerful program. I think most people who like to hate on SAS don't appreciate exactly what it brings to the table. But I think it was like Jim Goodnight was kind of like, we just called this statistics, and like he's right. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that isn't necessarily new. But it is being applied in novel ways to new problems, which is very exciting, right? That is an advance in and of itself. Why the hell was I going on? Oh, yeah, right. So one of the things that you'll see in terms of economics, you will notice that there are lots of papers where different machine learning techniques are being applied. But for some of the more conventional applications, you're not necessarily seeing these tools being applied maybe as widely as you would expect. And one of the big reasons for this is that the point of a lot of economics papers is not the statistics or the econometrics. What you're trying to do is you're trying to identify, like you're basically trying to make a statement about the state of the world. Things like, returns to capital or, labor share of capital or, I mean, and forecasting is a whole other thing that probably doesn't actually come up a whole lot in a lot of different journals, but people are really interested in. But the thing is that it is sometimes helpful to use a model that might seem, or an estimator specifically, that might seem very old-fashioned, but it happens to have some like really nice statistical properties that will allow you to get to the conclusion that that's the truth, or to your best understanding. So like a good example of this would be a Poisson regression. There is a problem known as overdispersion, and it actually comes up quite commonly. Now, there are different ways of correcting for the error, but what happens quite frequently is people say, oh, just use a negative binomial. And the thing is that in certain contexts, the negative binomial can actually impose a number of restrictions that are quite limiting, depending on the question you're trying to answer. And maybe the question of your errors isn't actually as big of a deal as it seems at first. So in this case, the Poisson can actually be a very appropriate choice. Again, I'm sorry I'm talking shop here. And again, the idea here is that like there's no one statistical model which is, the best. What you are looking for instead is a series of tools to be able to gain insight in terms of the world. There's a saying which is, all models are wrong, some models are useful. And one of the things that tends to happen quite a bit with a lot of the estimators that fall under machine learning is that they're often quite good for coming up with a fit. And in fact, they're good for coming up with a fit that also addresses this problem of creating sort of arbitrarily good fits that fit the training data very well, but don't necessarily scale to real world applications. So there's a whole kind of literature around solving that problem, and they tend to perform quite well. But in terms of being able to sort of explain the mechanisms behind how these things work, they don't necessarily deliver on that because they're not intended to. They're intended to sort of solve a different problem. And it can seem kind of weird if you don't know how this stuff works if you don't know how this stuff works, it can seem weird that like something that's very good at forecasting an outcome isn't very good at telling you what brought about that outcome. But that's actually a very common thing that happens depending on what estimators use. And then obviously, people recognize these issues and they try and improve the existing tools, or they build new ones. There's lots of different ways of approaching that. But anyways, needless to say that I was running into the situation at work. And again, this is a completely thank you very much, Narkexy. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm really just trying to establish a grouchy thing I said at work. But like the idea here is that the person was very much focused on one particular problem that they thought was very important, when in fact it was not a mistake to not choose this point of optimization. It was, we had another goal, which we were achieving quite well, thank you very much. And it's a little bit like if I guess I'll put it to you this way. It's like if you play Phantom Brigade and you're like, really good animation, 1 out of 10, it wasn't a first-person shooter. It's like, well, where did you get the idea that this is a first-person shooter, right? Maybe that's not the most fair dimension across which you can evaluate Phantom Brigade. But anyways, that was one of the more recent times I got a what you failed to realize item. Is like, nope, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've actually brought it up at a couple of meetings myself. It just happened to be meetings where it was relevant. Obviously I didn't say that. I said, this is not a mistake, it's a choice. But that gives you an idea of how annoyed I am by that phrase, though. Okay, so I am gonna grab the precious stuff. The rest of it... Oh, we're already at 1:30. Buried treasures. After the fight, your team performs a routine sweep of the area. You notice a group of scouts huddled around some rubble, talking in hushed tones. When one of them spots you, they all stand at attention. Commander. At their feet is a container, its casing caked in dirt and dust. It looks old, but otherwise intact. We found it jammed in between some books and tools, explains the scout. What should we do with it? I can't remember if we've got a closed box, so we'll store the box for now. And obviously, we've made good progress on Liberation so far. So we're going to, I think we'll overdrive to the outpost actually, at least for a start. Okay, so we'll cruise to get the battery back. I'm going to want to make my way to that battle site, but... Sitting ducks, you're looking through the latest report when you hear one of your pilots laughing and calling out to you in front of the base. Look at this, your pilot says when you join him. They're sitting ducks. Sure enough, on the radar, you can see that there are some enemy mechs up ahead. I think they're just gearing up to join that battle over there. He taps the screen where there is a cluster of activity. We could get in quick before they know what hit them. Suit up. So we're not going to take as long as we have before, but one of the reasons why I spent all the time working on that is I want to make it so that when we get new toys, I want to be able to quickly decide whether or not it's worth it. Yeah, so this is a 25.9. It's a flashpoint thruster, which we already have. So yeah, this arrow might already be an improvement. Improved cooling. Looks good to me. Oh, hang on. No, that doesn't work actually. It seemed like it, but the defense made all the difference. Okay, so this thing's still too heavy compared to... So similar story with the Herald. So I don't really see a way that this Tsubasa can do better. Now I know where the sidestep went. Okay. Not big on most of the stuff that we got here. So we'll take a quick peek with the longbow just to see see if there's anything kind of relevant, but yeah, so just given the offensive modules, that's already not really happening. The arrow, the medium arm. So it's like it's not terrible. We're at we actually have a higher overall. We do wind up with a higher overall. Yeah, that's not as good. So last thing we'll take a quick look at will be my my defender, because again this arm may give me something. So the drawback here, of course, is that this would take our weight too low. So I just don't see why I would change this. So what that means is we can say scrap and detach. Don't need the handgun. Then we've got 2 clusters. This one seems to be strictly better. Cool. So obviously that still took some time, but I wanted to see if I can, be a little bit better at maintaining. Oh yeah, actually I also need to improve the base, seeing as we just got a whole bunch of new parts. We'll take care of that in a bit. So this seems like a lot of enemies when you look at the briefing, but I'm pretty sure most of these are going to be turrets. One way or the other, though, this is going to be a really good test of the new squad, because I need to, the turrets fix my positioning a bit. Commander, the base is circled around to the perimeter. We're ready to pick up the squad if needed. The enemy will hold the site if you do so. Code red, hostile unit contact. All units hold optimal range and await reinforcements. Oh, it's been a while since I've heard this song. This is a good one. Okay, so we've got a mech with an assault rifle. We've got a mech with a cannon. Okay, so the good news is the cannon is not that threatening of a weapon. I mean, we're still light, so we probably need to smarten up, but okay, so we've got an assault rifle, a cannon, and a shotgun. The shotgun I should fear, but they're going to need to take some time to get in range. Cannon is the one I can sort of afford to ignore. The enemy tanks, so 2 cannon and then an autocannon. Fortunately, the cannon do go after me, but it looks like it gets hit by a hill. And then a machine gun and 2 missile turrets. Okay. So we know this unit's going to be running around. I don't need to worry too much about their safety. So obviously this guy gets in the way, but I figure we just let her rip and let the assault rifle take it on the chin. Now, this isn't how I was originally planning on doing the turn, but I think being able to snipe out one of those tanks is a good idea. So we're gonna have to worry about that shotgunner, but I should be able to dodge away when the time comes. Okay, he's going straight for my Herald, so I think... Now this is going to be fun, actually. So I can just wait them out. I can wait out the tank here. I'm turning my back on cannon fire. So if I just run like hell right at the start. I'll confess, I'm a little surprised that it's actually fitting behind the, like, it does feel like these are hitting over the hills. Which is fine, like, it's not like critical that I avoid any damage from this guy. I'm only gonna do 2 because we do need to recover the heat. And then the good news is this guy gets to sort of lumber in and cause some trouble. So I've had more exciting turns, but I think this will work out. All right, have a good one, Vanguard Master. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure nobody's crashing into each other. Okay. Got nothing. Okay, so we did get hit by that one. Mostly barrier, though. Oh, that's a thing of beauty. Okay, so this guy's roughed up by the okay, that's actually really interesting to see that they're already getting hammered. So if I dash, yeah, we're too hot, so we're gonna move to the side here. It's overly cautious, but I don't see any problem doing that. Okay, that accomplishes nothing. So if I move off to the side like so. Yeah, they still keep at it. I would prefer to keep the pressure up on this guy. So there is an option where I just sort of stand and continue to fire. So here's how I'm going to handle that actually. So I am going to take a hit in the back, which isn't so good. Well, this is just such a good opportunity to keep this guy at arm's length. And I'm going to do something a little counterintuitive here. So I'm going to dash off to the side. Okay, can't quite do that. If I get to throw my shield up to defend, not quite. Okay, Harold's gonna have to deal with some mechs. So if I just straight up run away, maybe. I'm not entirely convinced I walk out of that unscathed, but... And honestly, it's kind of ridiculous to be suppressed by a couple little tanks like that, but... Better option is obviously just to go out strong, because I'm pretty sure I can outshoot these guys. Okay, so there is a question. I suspect the shotgunner's gonna, yeah, they're gonna try try something nasty with my marksman. So yeah, we don't quite have the heat for that, but okay, that doesn't exactly get us out of danger, so try and do something a little fancier. Honestly, at this distance, I'm already safe, so let's watch the magic. I don't like how much of that's going into the shield, but beggars can't be choosers. Okay, so that thing's already crashing. It's not going to do any damage to me. We may be able to take it out. Brilliant. So as you can see, there's a bit of damage on my heavy here, so I want to be careful about that. Pilot's already concussed. I don't even think we touched him. So much for the scrap, though. Okay, so we took a little bit of damage on the end here. So again, notice how fragile we are. So this stuff matters even if it's out of range. I think that went straight into the shield. But we were able to concuss the tank. This one's taken out. This unit's dead. This unit is ejecting. So effectively we are, I believe, just fighting one enemy at this point. It's an enemy that wants to beat the crap out of me. But here's what we're going to do. So we're going to hold the line for the rest of the shot. Okay, so the rest of this is really just a matter of cleanup. So part of this is going to have to be a question of navigating the base. Like, this guy moves fast, but he doesn't work miracles. Okay, so I'm possibly in danger at the start of next turn. The question is, can I translate any of this into an attack? Sort of. The first one's a waste, but... Okay, so the next thing I want to do is, if I can, I want to deploy my heavy weaponry on that unit. Got to shed some heat before we jump. And again, the real question here is, when do I get a clear shot? All right, we've got it. Okay, so I gotta be a little careful in how I move. Yeah, you know what, it's not going to be relevant but we'll watch the magic nonetheless. Actually, we can replay that because I didn't do that at full speed. So notice that with that barrier, everything that I've done to that defender is effectively hit it in the shield. So barrier is considerably more powerful than I give it credit for, but it's also because, I don't know, for the most part, I face a lot of all or nothing sort of fights. So if I get kind of the full damage, then or like if I get hit once, then it's just it's a game over for the most part. I don't know if I'm going to be able to grab all of these. Okay, yeah. So we can definitely afford to ditch the cannon, and that's it. So we're going to do a standard move to the mine site until we repair. I'm going to take a second here. Oh wait, we got to repair the next. But we can go to the upgrades first. So I think the capacitors are probably what the doctor ordered first, unless actually cruise speed's probably better. All right. So let's just take a minute here and think about the upgrade paths that will go down. So overdrive shielding adds heat shielding to the reactor, reducing the heat signature in overdrive mode. Increased heat makes the base harder to see at a distance. Increases noise, making the base easier to identify at close range. Is that just in general? Yeah, so I'm not, like, this is not an overriding priority. So speed, definitely. Stealth efficiency might be nice. But I think there is a reasonable... So I don't know, like rapid ignition, improved regeneration, those are definitely good things to have, but I think there's a reasonable argument at this point that I should consider building some items in the workshop. So wait till we're at 100%. So I'm going to take a minute here and just do my thing with the units. So we've got a better assault rifle and a shotgun. Got a couple torsos that might be interesting. Yeah, so this Elbrus torso... This Elbrus torso might actually do something for me. Oh, nope, because it doesn't have the light plate. Arrow's not going to do anything. Alright, these legs. We've got 14-1 legs. These might actually do something. 16-3? No. It's a 12 arm on its own. I have my doubts, but let's try it. Okay, 11-5, maybe. Wait, what am I saying? Oh yeah, no. So Tsubasa, the naked Tsubasa has the defect of, like, so the heat dissipation's kind of nice. So the question here, if I take if I put the light plate on it, we get a 24. So if I put this Nox on and give it the light plate, we still get a 24. So in this case, the heat overrides. Okay, so the Herald has a potential upgrade for a gun. So we've got the AR2 burst. This one does less kinetic damage. Apparently slightly better. Okay, I get it. So the DPS is higher. Just the total DPS. So the... Wait, what? So slightly less heat generation. Higher scatter, though. Yeah, so I don't like that. I should probably actually scrap these two bursts now that I look at it. Okay, so this upper body, small argument for the Nox here. So what don't I like about this? It's already got a... Yeah. I have a feeling, so we're at 28. Oh no, it's the sidestep thruster that makes this whole thing work. Or does it? Yeah, we can still get a 28 out of that. So if I compare it with the Tsubasa, I actually slightly prefer this. So just for the sake of comparison... Oh, wait, this actually already have a heatsink 3. Okay. Okay, so if I fully kit this thing out, okay, so the Tsubasa actually gives me better heat dissipation than... Good to know. I'm not even going to try the arrow. I don't see... Well... Yeah, the low guy, I think, is gonna keep me from doing anything interesting. Tsubasa legs are 13. I don't see that happening. Composite arm compared to... Yeah, so unless this thing's got cooling, so we already have... Or, hang on, this arrow arm might be interesting. So it's the same but better heat generation. Okay, so we got a little bit of an improvement. I don't think we have a better... So lower overall power. Right. That's not comparable for what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so we've got these weight reduction legs. There's a slight... Oh man, I don't even have the better heat dissipation. Okay. Arms. So maybe... It's still 27, so if I give him the Nox here and I put on the light plate, I still get 28. And the defense isn't all that much better. Now, I should also think, okay, so got the hot rod reactor already, so yeah, we're good. We're good for reactors. At this point, we're really just maintaining speed. Or otherwise trying to get, like, so there's a few things we can do, like try to shave off the light plate or the weight reduction or something like that. In this case here, unless I can wind up with some better offensive module, which I can't, so that's all she wrote. No better machine gun, so we're fine there. I think we're good for Svalin. Torsos. I would need to switch to an overdrive to be sure. But I think this is giving up too much in terms of... Oh yeah, the weight is already a problem, so yeah, that's a non-starter. Nox legs... it's a weight problem. So we're just going to leave that be. We'll say all of the... Probably not all the parts. All the body parts, maybe. I don't need any of these AR bursts. We had a duplicate for one of the... Or did we already get rid of... I think we already got rid of the cluster. So we have multiple shred shotguns. Slight difference in heat generation. There's a slightly better concussion. I'm gonna go for the higher number, although it does make me feel a little dirty. Okay. I can work with this. I think this is gonna be the last mission that we go on. So we go stealth for a little while just so that we can get the drop on the site. This is where that extra power really comes in handy. And hit them before they can reply. Alright, into the fray. The base comes alive with the sound of boots crashing against the floor. In the hangar, an engineer shouts his instructions to the crew, and a pilot rushes to get changed. You keep your breath trained on the battle console, settling yourself with a deep breath. So we've already done all this work, so liberation with 2, 3, 4, 5 targets. I am not expecting any of those to be turrets. Oh, it's been a while since I've seen this map. This is a fun one. terrible for me, but it's a fun one. If the enemy has a bunch of snipers, I am in for an absolutely miserable time. And there's some good angles in this. Commander, the base is circled around to the perimeter. We're ready to pick the squad up if needed. The enemy will hold the site if you do so. Careful not to careful. Do not damage key civilian locations. We are here to protect them. It's been a while since I've had one of those. So let's start by seeing what I'm not allowed to blow up. I am allowed to blow up everything. Okay, so we've got a missile launcher which will do 1,000 damage on a hit, so maybe don't get hit by that. We've got a shotgun which will do 1,000 damage on a hit, so don't get hit by that. We've got a sniper rifle that does 300 damage a hit. You're allowed to get hit by that, unless you are 3 out of 4 of my units. Okay. And the plasma... Oh, God, the plasma launcher is actually going to be exciting, and that does almost 1,000 damage. So if I recall correctly, this thing, like, runs around buildings and just generally wrecks your day. Fires a ball of guided charged energy that explodes in proximity to the target. Slow but powerful. Also deals concussive damage to slow-moving groups. So really... Oh, man. Okay. There's actually quite a bit of hate for the... Okay, so the question here is, can I withstand the sniper shot? So that's 338 damage in its perfect setup. No, we cannot even withstand one of those. So, next question. Can I throw myself in front of my ally to stop the damage? We still tickle each other. Now, interestingly enough, that still seems to have a direct line. The angle's kind of off now. Right, so what I'm really trying to see here is, so we take this guy, okay, I originally wanted to let her rip here. That's just not really worth it. Okay, so if I try something like this instead. That doesn't do the trick. The problem is that takes too long. So I think, if I'm honest, I can't make the turn work with this unit. What I can do is prep myself for the next turn. So we're going to dash to get past the rockets. Nope. So then they're going after me with their missiles. Fair enough. Okay, well, look. Normally you don't want your heavy weapons being the distraction. But given that given that this is the state of the world, I'm going to move ahead. And we're going to start chewing on some tanks. Well, I guess we only have 2. And one of them's got an autocannon, so... It's a little silly I'm doing it this way, but... the sniper rifle is the least of my worries. Okay, I'll admit, I'm a little surprised that works. Okay, so that's a good way for me to get hit with a shotgun. Okay, that's not good, but I can move up a little bit. Okay, and that's unfortunately a collision, so we adjust. Oof. That drops off right at the end there. But I mean, I gotta work with what I've got. I can try and finesse the turn all I want. So I gotta be honest, the plasma launcher is a worry. But it's also rather well guarded right now, so I think what I will do okay, so if I just stand and fire as I do here, and then I end that with a dash, I overheat, yeah. So this is one of the things I hate about these missile launchers, is that they reduce my turn to evading them and then trying to deliver on the following turn. So I'm kind of committed to it. And again, fair enough, that's a choice. But let's make them pay. Okay, I don't like that angle. This is the sniper, so that's not quite as exciting of a target. And apparently I missed that. I think I'm just gonna have to take my chances. Okay, actually I know how I'm doing this. So if I just try and move him forward like this, yeah, it's a traffic jam, so go around the edge. up. Okay, so that's the primary target because that shotgun is exposed. The other thing I want to do, trying to avoid heat, is put a bit of pressure on this tank. Now it's not great, but I'm hoping that that'll move the needle for my existing unit. So let's see if anybody dies. Okay, nobody crashed, which is a good start. Fortunately, this tank's already toast. Okay, but we've still got the plasma coming after us, so the main moves I'm going to be doing will be with the are going to be with my heavy again. Okay, now this gets interesting. So that's the sniper doing that. That's a real threat, actually. Okay, so we're going to start with a dash. That's primarily to deal with the with a snipe, but again, we've got missiles coming after us, so. So again, I don't exactly want this unit to be a distraction, but given the space that it creates for my other units, it's very hard to say no. Okay, now this is interesting. So it decides not to fire at me at all, and instead it's going to protect itself with a shield. I think that opens a possibility for taking out the plasma launcher then. That's a good way to lose my pilot. And then I just sort of sneak down below so that there isn't like a shotgun retaliation, although we know that's going to cross over to the next turn. Okay, so this is an autocannon, so I don't need to worry about that. I guess the question is, what is the most available target? It really is this sniper. So this is the least interesting target I could be focusing on right now, but it's available, and that is half the battle sometimes. So maybe we can get a better angle on him, though. It is actually embarrassing I need to wait that long. That's a huge drop off. Okay, so I can't actually afford to wait. That sucks too. There's no good angle. So we don't play that game. We go after... no, this one's moving too quickly. Okay, so we are going to go after the sniper after all. It's ugly, but it's what I got. Marksman might be able to bring a little more fire. I hate how much of this turn is being wasted on movement, but... yeah, it's not great, but... oh, that's good. So we took an arm off of that one. Alright, what are we up against? So there's reduced to a sidearm. Perhaps unsurprisingly, they want revenge. So this is actually one of the simplest for me to deal with. They're so focused on hitting me with that shield for the start. I'm a little late in where I need to be, but I'm not going to dash it. Could be better, but I finally have my heavy back in the fight. And notice that that's on the shotgun side. Okay, this is the unit with the sniper. Okay, this guy's coming back with the... okay, so this seems like a pretty straightforward choice here. We hit the sniper with our marksman. And then we shed the heat. And this unit's going to be feeling a bit of pressure, but we... honestly, I think we just wait it out. Sounds like a good opportunity to me. Or looks like, rather. So want to see if I trip. Nice. So I'm gonna get hit by a bit of the shrapnel, but. Okay. It's done. So is this one, and this one's lost its weapons, so that should be basically the end of the encounter. They're going to eject. Actually, technically this unit is crashing. So we have a normal strategy for that. We just position everyone to be able to wipe out the unit if they decide to fire. Okay, well, nobody's ever gonna accuse this guy of not having any heart, but perhaps this was not the. This is not an example of self-preservation being a primary concern. I do still want to take this guy on an angle just because... Okay, that's enough. And just in case he somehow gets through, or actually, yeah. Sometimes this is just about seeing how much damage I can do in one fixed period of time. Ah! Sorry, it's a little bit of a difficulty with the with the visuals there. Sometimes you feel terrible for the enemy pilots put themselves through. You know any sane person would surrender or punch out. I mean, my justification for this has always been that you have perfect knowledge 5 seconds into the future. So it's, you know, it's kind of the... You know, the standoff. Are they going to go for their weapon or not? And I always feel it's the nice thing to allow them to eject. Like, obviously, you know, if there's a little too much damage and somebody's taken out before they eject, I can kind of like live with that. I feel bad about it, but it's like it's one of these things, right? Like unless there's a really clear behavior in terms of how pilots eject, you really do have to worry about the safety of your own pilots. And the fact of the matter is that if there is a highly predictable pattern for how... I would have laughed so hard if that was a friendly fire situation. But yeah, like if it winds up being predictable, so if it's like, you know, enemy units will always eject at 20% health. Well, you know, in that case, it's kind of like giving every enemy unit a 20% like 20% less health. Like effectively, that's kind of what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying that's not part of the calculation. It's just that if it's too predictable, then, you know, you're no longer worrying about taking an enemy to 0. You're worrying about taking an enemy to a particular number. And that number is smaller than the full damage. And of course, if it's predictable, then you're also going to be able to maximize your scrap. You can set it up so that when the total damage or loss of limbs equals a certain value. Yeah. No, I'm not trying to suggest that it's impossible to do. But again, like even if you make it a probabilistic statement, on average, you're going to see a certain behavior happen, at a certain level. And again, you start playing the game effectively like your enemies have less HP. But I mean, then again, you also have, you have other factors at play as well. Like obviously this game has enough of an AI that I kind of need to worry about where I place myself, because it has laid traps for me, and I've actually been ones that I found very difficult to get out of. So I don't actually think the calculation should be something that would just use health, full stop. I actually think that there's probably a few other things that that you would factor in as well. Like basically, I think the eject system works well the way it does. I just feel bad for the pilots that decide to keep fighting. And again, the thing is that pilots don't know what you're going to do. You know what they're going to do, and they're going to fight as best as they can. But anyways, so we got some rare components, some supplies, probably a lot of scrap, but ooh. First plasma launcher. Our heart and soul. Someone plops a large crate onto the table in front of you. Slowly you look up and take in the proud face of one of the townsmen. He beams at you, his mustache twitching in glee. We don't have much to give you, Brigade, but this is the heart and soul of our town. He gestures to the alcohol in the crate. We make it locally, right down to the glass and labels. You did us an enormous favor, so it's only right that you take some of our heart and soul with you. The townsman preens, and one of your pilots whistles at the offering. Please enjoy and come back to visit sometime. So we can drink, recovery of 10. I think I'm going to save it for later, because normally I think there's a bonus you get, like when you need to use it. Generally it works a bit better. We're so close to liberating the site, but I do actually need to make sure that you'll probably notice, so I am starting later on some streams, but the other thing that's happening is I've been running hot in terms of the time that I so like the time that I run the stream for, it started to creep towards sort of like an average of 5 hours. And I honestly, like, there are worse things that I can do. But I am finding myself, like, one of the reasons why it's taking me a long time, or like one of the reasons why I'm starting later is I am struggling to get all of the stuff I need to do done on time. So, and I know that I'm going to be doing some extra streaming soon. So, I'm going to call it here. It is July the 12th. Now, well, also temperature-wise, it's been pretty brutal here lately. So let's take a look at what the forecast says. So today the high was... It says the high was 27. I don't believe that, though. I seem to remember seeing something that said 30. Maybe it was. It's actually... I've noticed it's starting to cool off. But yeah, the high is 27, 25, 28, 29, 27, 29. It's around the 30 area. I don't know. I'm actually starting to feel kind of bad complaining about this, because compared to what we've had the last little while, it's a bit cooler than before. But I've definitely been feeling the weather. Complain about the heat all you want to an Australian. I guess it's quite cool where you are now. I can never remember what the temperature's like. all I remember is I built a snowman on my birthday once. What was I? Sorry, I was gonna check something. Oh. Okay, so I guess the first thing we want to do is see if there's any... Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was going to try and lay out the plans for the upcoming... the next few days, next week or two. I am... So I'm definitely going to stream Friday, and I'm probably going to... winter days are about 22 to 23 minimum on cold winter days. Oh, God. Yeah, I got nothing on you. But yeah, so Friday I'm probably going to do Cyberpunk. I do eventually want to get back to Age of Wonders 4, but I have been having a good time with Cyberpunk lately, so I'm probably going to do that. Saturday, I do intend to stream. I'm not 100% sure when, though. So as soon as I know, I will tweet that, I guess. Monday, and again, that's usually, like, the point is less the birthday, it's more I don't really have a whole lot of other plans, and so it's nice to just be able to sort of sit down and hang out with some people and just do stuff. Next Monday will be more Old World, I think, because we actually just started a fairly tough fight with Greece, and we're either going to do something amazing or we're going to get utterly decimated. Excuse me. And then the reason why I've been doing the full week is I want to talk about next Wednesday. So there are a few things going on which may change things up for Wednesday. I do eventually want to get back to Godless. And then, of course, I like Phantom Brigade. I'd like to do Industries of Titan at some point as well. And then, of course, there's Super Raft Boat Together coming out, which, TBD. Although I guess that's not next week. I guess that's a ways off. But yeah, needless to say, like, there's a lot of good Brace Yourself stuff out and coming out. And so I'm very fond of Phantom Brigade. I want to do it more. But this is one which sort of is fighting with a few other very good titles to try and find its place. So, like I said, we'll see where all of it goes. But I need to wrap up. So thank you everybody for watching. I'm actually kind of surprised. There's a lot of people online, but not a lot of people really playing games or otherwise like people that I normally host. So I'm going to host How Is It Manifested? How Is It Manifested is a truly strange but very enjoyable sort of AI channel. So the idea behind this is that when the live requests are on, and this is one of the reasons why I'm rating it right now, is when you visit this channel, you can do an exclamation mark and a show type. And again, if you take a look at the commands, it'll tell you how to do it. But basically, you can request an episode when those are enabled, and it goes in. I think they use ChatGPT for this, and then I guess DALL-E. But yeah, anyways, it generates a bunch of images associated with this script, and effectively, it's like a viewer-driven. It's a viewer-driven insane channel that produces just a bunch of generative AI nonsense, and there's some truly bizarre stuff that comes out. I've had a lot of fun watching it, so I hope you all have some fun with this as well. And again, I was hoping to host a Phantom Brigade stream, but there wasn't any available. So have a good evening, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye.